Thank you so much, Megan. And thank you to Sasetta, again, for hosting us today. And good morning, everyone. I hope you all got your coffee and that we're all ready for this. I don't know what the paper is. All right, so you see that there's a title at the top there that's crossed out. That's because I wrote this talk about 2 or 3 months ago. And then when I started practicing it, I said, that's not what we want to talk about today. And so sometimes, things evolve as you meditate on them and you practice them. So now we're talking about you need to be committed, which is a heavy topic because sometimes, depending on who's saying that to you, can't really see the slides, can we? Depending on who's saying that to you, it can be a negative thing. This is someone in a padded room, in case you can't see that slide. So depending on whether or not they have that judging tone in their voice and the side-eye look, they might be, you need to be committed. Sometimes it is powerfully positive, and it's a show of love. So I am incredibly committed to my family and to my husband. We've been married for almost 20 years now, together for 21. We have an 18-year-old daughter, so I've been a mother for a very long time. We're going to talk about that commitment here in just a little bit. I'm also committed to my faith. And I respect that looks different for everyone. My values, and in fact the work that I do today, stems a lot from my faith and a lot from my values. And that's why I'm also very committed to my work. I'm one of those people. You can judge. I work all the time. I work when I'm sleeping. I work on the weekends. I work at the dinner table with my husband. And not that I have my computer out and my phone out all the time, but I am always thinking about my work. I'm always pouring my heart into my work. And Megan shared a little bit about my company, so it's easy for you to see why I love my work so much. When you have a company called CauseLabs, it's easy to see why I love my work. But it's really overwhelming to run a company. It's really overwhelming to be a freelancer, an entrepreneur. Work in general is hard. Commitment is hard. So it's not so different to run a company as to be a mother. Sometimes we want to scream. How many of you in here are mothers? Fathers? Yes. So some of us know the terrible twos, the crazy teenage years, when they turn 9 years old and they get really sassy. We just want to scream. I mean, this is what I look like most days. And it's not just because of my kids, sometimes it's because of my husband, sometimes it's because of my work, sometimes it's because of my clients. We've all had these moments. And so, isn't it funny that the word asylum both means an institution for the mentally ill, as well as a refuge and safe haven for people seeking asylum? It's because we walk a very fine line between crazy and crazy brilliant, insanity and insanely innovative. When we're super committed, we're crazy. In fact, a serial entrepreneur, Andrew Weinreich, said, if people aren't calling you crazy, then you're not thinking big enough. And as I was writing this talk, I was thinking, well, in this day and age, you have to really push the boundaries for people to think of you as innovative, for people to think of you as a master, for people to think of your idea as genius. But it's not just in this day and age. That's been forever. How crazy do we have to be to excel? Mad Hatter crazy? I mean, how committed do we have to be to our craft? How committed do we have to be to our ideas? How committed do we have to be to our creativity to reach the points of, wow, that's genius, that's brilliant, that's beautiful? I mean, I look at the Mad Hatter and I think, man, that's really well done. beautiful. It's artistic. It's amazing. And I'm in awe. So for people to look at you in awe, you have to push the boundaries and be really, truly committed to it. There's somebody else that has hair kind of like the Mad Hatter, except it's all white. Einstein is now revered as a genius, but at one point in time, I'm sure people thought he needed to be committed into an institution. He had crazy ideas, and he was really pushing for something different and new, something that people didn't know yet. And so I believe that for us, we always are searching for that level of mastery. And we think of Einstein and Beethoven and Picasso and some of these other greats, like the names that everybody knows, and we think, I wish I could be like them. Or, man, they were once in a lifetime. I was talking to somebody a couple nights ago, actually, about Steve Jobs, and you'll see one of his quotes in this presentation a little bit later. He said, he was one in a million. Like, you don't get many like him. And he was certifiably crazy. And always, dictating where that point of perfection needed to be. But he was trying to change the user experience for everyone. And so many of you have phones in your hands or in your pockets now. And that's because of this brilliant man. And we see him as this master. But every single one of us has that in us. It's just a matter of how we define mastery. So we're going to unpack that a little bit, using Einstein here as our guide. Malcolm Gladwell had a book called Outliers, and in that book, he theorized that with 10,000 hours of practice, you would achieve mastery in a skill. Now, several of you raised your hands that you were mothers, right? Okay, how many of you have been mothers for at least 4 years? All right, remember that. So, if you need 10,000 hours to be master, and there are 8,760 hours in a year, whoops, technical difficulties. If there are 8,760 hours per year, and we assume that a third of that is sleeping, because you all sleep 8 hours a night, right? And I'm going to assume that a third of that is working, because I at least work a little more than 40 hours a week. And those of us that own our own business or are freelancers work a little more than 40 hours per week. So we're just going to assume that we work a third of our year, which means at 4+ years, right around 4 years, we're nearing 10,000 hours. Which slide are we on now? All right, so does 4+ years in something equal mastery? For those mothers out there that have been mothers for 4+ years, you're master mothers. I'm just telling you that now, you can claim the title. How many of you have been students in your life for at least 4 years? Master learners, there we go. Okay, how many of you have been in your current job for more than 4 years? You're masters in that job, congratulations. So it's more about framing how we consider a master. I mean, certainly, there's something that comes with time in the seat. I always say to my project managers when they ask, how did you scope that so quickly? I say, well, I've been doing this for a minute. And I would rather, for example, have a pilot that has had their license for 4 years than 4 minutes. That doesn't mean the pilot that's had it for 4 minutes can't fly, because obviously he's been through the same training. But I assume that there's some intuitive skill that comes with sitting in that seat for 4 years. And we all have those intuitions about, this becomes easier when I've been doing it for a while. I become more efficient. The thing we have to worry about is if we get complacent. And after 4 years, if we make decisions without thinking, because that's the way we've always done it, and so we commit to that not to our creativity, and not to pushing the boundaries and doing something different or something better. And so we have this concept that being a master is something mythical and unreachable. We believe that we have to reach the level of Yoda to be a master. But really, Luke Skywalker was a master. And he was just as capable as Yoda. In fact, he was born with the gift. He had a natural talent. There are some of us here that have natural ability for music. My daughter is one of those people. She hears music differently than everybody else. Like, I can't hear it. She's like, oh, that'd be a great mashup. No, I don't hear the beat, sorry. She's like, no, listen, just like this other song. I don't hear it. She has a natural gift for music, and I used to tell her when she was younger, well, practice makes perfect. Just keep practicing, and you'll reach mastery. Well, she's been doing it since she was 4 years old. She's now 18. She's a master. She definitely has reached Yoda level. She won't see herself as that, but she is. She's incredibly gifted and incredibly talented, and we all have those natural talents and gifts. So if you have that natural talent, and you've put in the time, does that equal commitment? Is that what it means to be truly committed to something? Now, if you define commitment, it's not a verb. It's an adjective. It actually is a feeling of dedication to something. And so it's a descriptor. And so devotion is what equals commitment, which means commitment is a choice. I choose to be devoted to my family and my husband. I choose to be devoted to my faith. And I choose to be devoted to my work. And so, a lot of us choose to be devoted to our passions, which are sometimes our hobbies. This is not a picture of me, by the way. I do not jump off the side of mountains. Beautiful view, wish I could do it. Not really, that would be terrifying. But I wish I was one of those people that wasn't afraid of this. But we do get committed to our hobbies because we love them so much. I happen to be committed to my work because I love it so much. Mark Cuban said, work like someone is working 24 hours a day to take it away from you. I'll tell you my story in a little bit, and that's why I would hate for somebody to take my work away from me. My work is my hobby, my work is my passion. My work is related to my faith and to my family. Now, if I said that I worked in research and discovery, that I was trying to cure cancer, that I was trying to explore new worlds, you might say, okay, I get it. I get why she's doing it. Like, I would do that. I would work all the time if that's what I did. That's not what I do. It's not that big and grand. I'm not going for Yoda. I'm going for Luke Skywalker. But my work is still just as awesome. Steve Jobs, here's the quote that I was talking about earlier, said, "Those who think they're crazy enough to change the world are the ones who do." And he is a man that changed the world. He changed the way that we interact with one another. He changed the way that my children are going to interact with people in the future. And I'm not necessarily trying to be Steve Jobs. But my work, as Megan mentioned earlier, changes lives. At CauseLabs, I get to do really amazing things. And the very first project that I had there was in 2010. I traveled to India, that's where this picture was taken, and we were doing a Bible translation project. For those of you that don't know, there are over 7,000 languages in the world. And I have a background in linguistics, and so this was like a passion project of mine. Not only did I get to work in linguistics, I got to travel abroad, I got to visit a village in India, I got to visit an orphanage, and we were using a crowdsourcing tool to translate the Bible into a language that had never been written. I mean, that alone pulled at my heartstrings. It still pulls at my heartstrings. When I was in India, though, I got to visit these children, and some of them are orphans and some of them are semi-orphans, meaning they have a mother, but their mother can't provide for them, and for one reason or another, their father has passed, or their father is not around. And that was heartbreaking for me, but I got to see how they were provided for and taken care of. And when I came home and I told my mother this story and how moved I was by the work that I was doing, she said, "Did you know that you were one of those children?" Mind you, I'm 33 years old, and this is the first time I'm hearing this story, but I was sponsored by the Burlesque Book Foundation. My mother was a single mother. She got $3 a week so that she could feed me. So I was born into poverty and I didn't even know it. And now I'm working in some of the poorest areas in the world. And so my life came full circle. When I was 18 months old, my mother tells me I almost died, and the Burlesque Book Foundation provided the medical care to save my life. I believed that I was brought to CauseLabs because I would discover this work. I believed that I was meant to be here. So when I say that my work is related to my faith, it's not just that I worked on a Bible translation project. It's that I felt like I was led here. I felt like I was meant to be here. And that was 7.5 years ago. And so my commitment to my work is as much a commitment to my values and what I believe I can bring to the world. And how I feel my work is really making a difference. And so I found this magical trifecta of finding my purpose and finding something that I'm talented at, and also finding that when I put in enough time, I've gained enough skill to be a master at this. And so what happens when you have this magical trifecta? Well, you get a unicorn. I mean, not the $1 billion valuation unicorn. I mean, sometimes it is, but not necessarily. But you get something even better. You get this rainbow Pegasus unicorn. And I'm dating myself a little bit here. If you remember the Whisper books from the 80s, then you get it. They were really magical. But if we commit our time and we commit to our talents and we commit to our purpose, then we do end up with something beautiful and magical. We end up with happiness, and I ended up with the way to bring my whole self to every situation. And so when I say I work at the dinner table with my husband, I mean that I am always a whole woman. I'm always someone who cares about the same things in every situation that I'm in. I'm committed to being my whole self everywhere. That does mean that sometimes I have to know when to step back. And so when we're incredibly committed to something, whether it's the company or the kids or the marriage, there are times when you have that moment of wanting to scream. Remember that slide from the beginning where it was a panic, didn't know what to do? Sometimes we have to make decisions we don't want to make. Sometimes things get really hard. Sometimes we have to struggle. We have to know when to step back and take a breath. Sometimes we need asylum, and not the I'm crazy mental institution kind of asylum, but the retreat. You can still be committed and take care of yourself and take that step back and take that breath. To be committed, we have to be crazy. We have to push boundaries. I'm the person that always walks into the room and says, "That's a great idea. How's it going to change the world? That's a great business model. What's it doing for your community?" I'm the person that's always asking that question because that's the thing that I care about. I'm always trying to make businesses better, people better. I'm trying to connect us. Be crazy enough, or be committed enough to be called crazy. Be crazy enough to be brilliant.